Story 1. Hello, I want to tell you the first and very hopefully the last mystical story that happened to me 2 years ago. There is a park near my house which slowly turns into a forest. And in this forest there is an abandoned building. Well, more precisely not abandoned, but unfinished. The man who built it suddenly committed suicide. It was supposed to be a hotel. So in this very building my girlfriend and I went for adventure. We were then 14 years old, and as usual teenagers, we climbed all sorts of abandoned places. We did not expect to see something supernatural, because we thought it was all nonsense. So one sunny, beautiful day, we decided to go to this hotel. When we got there, we saw that the iron staircase that was there was gone. Apparently, the police had taken it down so kids wouldn't get in. But after we went around the whole building, we saw a ladder that led to the window on the first floor. The window was pretty high, about 2 meters. And of course, we climbed through it. We climbed to the first floor, looked around, and at first thought to split up to look for something interesting. But I remembered the trite American horror movies where people wandered alone and being killed by something, insisted on going together. We wandered the floors, scared each other, climbed on the roof, took a couple of pictures. The view from the roof there is very beautiful. The weather started to turn bad with the clouds and rain, and we decided to go home. But it was not easy. On the way out, we both had a feeling of panic. As if someone was watching us. It seemed at once, or maybe not, that something rustled, someone walked. We heard some creaking, and as it turned out, we got lost for a reason. When we realized this, I somehow burst into tears, and my friend was on the verge because the panic was growing, and we girls impressionable in the mysticism did not believe, but afraid to start believing, that is to see something mystical. And so we stood in the middle of the castle, which looked very much like a castle from outside. With flashlights, I cried. In my head, there was already an idea that we would not get out of here, but we continued to look for a way out. When we were somewhere on the second floor, I do not remember exactly, it became quiet. It stopped raining, although the weather was still oppressive. Then the silence was broken by an incomprehensible hiss, banging, and creaking. It seemed as if someone was approaching us. It was frightening. Then my friend turned around, and it seemed to me that she was turning blue. She grabbed my hand and quickly rushed down the stairs. It turns out that in these situations, it is much easier to find a way out. On the first floor, we ran through the left wing and found the very window with the stairs. But much to our dismay, there were no stairs. My friend quickly jumped down without thinking about the fact that it was high, and I stood there like a stone, because I did not understand what happened to her. Then she looks at me, and you could tell by the look on her face that she saw the same thing she saw on the second floor. She slowly stepped back 2 feet and said quietly, "Jump, quick." I realized that she was not looking at me, but at what was standing next to me. I did not want to turn around, but still, I had a thought for a second that my friend was kidding me, because I did not see anything until that moment. I turned around. What I saw, I remembered for the rest of my life. A meter away from me was a creature, like a man, but strange. I don't even know how to explain it. Some skewed man with black eyes. My eyes were blurry. Then it roared and began to approach me very slowly. I did not stay there long, quickly jumped from my friend. It was also scary to jump, because it was high. But I did not want to stay with this creature either, and we ran into the park. I did not even know that I could run so fast. Once in the park, we sat down on the nearest bench. We were silent for 2 minutes, getting out of shock. For a child's psyche, it is a terrible shock. I don't feel like climbing through abandoned buildings anymore. Story 2. I am, of course, a bad storyteller. The story is absolutely true. In the 90s, my mother worked as a maid in a hotel in Washington, D.C. She was an excellent worker, always had a genuine smile on her face, so when high-profile guests came to the hotel, the manager would send her to clean the room. One day, a man came to the hotel, whose real name I can no longer remember. We'll call him Mr. M. He stayed in the most expensive room. When my mother went to his room to tidy it up, there was a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door. What was remarkable was that the man didn't let anyone into the room for the entire month because he lived there. No one paid much attention to this because he was always polite and friendly and paid a lot of money. One day he disappeared and everyone thought he had moved out, so they sent my mother to clean up the room. The sign on the door was gone. As soon as she entered, a horrible smell made her stop. Coming to her senses, she went looking for its source. There was a box on the bathroom floor. Mom opened it to throw away whatever was giving off that horrible smell. But what she saw shocked her. There was a severed head of a girl. Mom ran out of the room and passed out in the elevator. When she woke up, the police were in the hotel. It turned out that the head belonged to the called girl, and no one else had ever seen Mr. M again. Mom quit the same day. Story 3. A guy came to a hotel and made his way to the front desk to check in. The girl at the front desk gave him the key and told him that on the way to his room, there was a door without a number that was locked, and no one was allowed to enter it. Specifically, no one, under any circumstances, should look in that room. The boy followed her advice and went straight to his room without looking anywhere and went to bed. But his curiosity kept him awake, and the next night he walked down the corridor to the door of the room without a number and jerked the knob. Naturally, it was closed. He leaned over and looked inside through the wide keyhole. Cold air was blowing from the room, chilling his eyes. He saw a hotel room like his, and in the corner sat a woman whose skin was completely white. She leaned her head against the wall, and her face was directed away from the door. He looked around some more and decided to knock on the door for fun, but he changed his mind. This decision saved his life. He stepped away from the door and went back to his room. The next day, he returned to that door and looked through the keyhole again. But this time he saw nothing. Everything was red. He couldn't see anything behind the solid red. The occupants of the room must have realized that I was peeping at them, so they covered the keyhole with something red, he thought. He decided to consult the girl at the front desk about it. She sighed and asked, "Did you look through the keyhole after all?" The guy admitted that yes, and she told him, "All right, if so. I'll tell you what the point is. A long time ago, a man killed his wife in that room, and her ghost has been living there ever since. But these men were not ordinary. They were all white, and their eyes were a deep red." Story 4. I worked at the hotel for about a year, and for the most part everything was fine. We had an elderly lady living with us who had settled in before I'd even went to work there. She would only leave her room when she needed to buy groceries or just go for a walk. The only weird thing about her was that she never let anyone in her room. Around January 2015, she started acting very strange. She was constantly getting angry about things that weren't there, getting mad at the staff, and yelling at everyone who walked by her room. After a while, she started yelling at everyone in her sight. And the weird thing was that she was shouting phrases like, "You shouldn't have done that. You'll be sorry. I'll find you," and things like that. After a while, we had to evict her because she was no longer paying for the room. When we went in there, even the most resilient ones felt sick. There was dirt, blood, spoiled food, and feces everywhere. There were old boxes everywhere, oozing an incomprehensible viscous liquid, and new, unused light bulbs lying in the corner. It turned out that she had stopped taking the pills that helped her cope with her disorder. Story 5. I was on vacation at the sea once. I stayed in a hotel on the 8th floor. Opposite is the same hotel. Whenever I came back from the beach and started to change, a girl in a striped robe would look at me from the next hotel. I was embarrassed, closed the curtains, but it was no particular use. The room is alone, the curtains are transparent, there is little furniture, there is no hiding behind it, and the toilet is even in the corridor. The girl was of little interest to me. She was a redhead, and I do not really like them. A few days before departure, I met with a sexy blonde. Since I'm not endowed by nature with looks, acquaintance, we quickly hooked up, and after a couple of days our relationship diluted with passionate kisses and a trip to my room. It was already dark. We lay on the bed and kissed. Her kisses from my lips went down. Anyway, that night we were doing well until my friend noticed this girl in a striped robe who was staring at us. Iris squealed, got dressed, and ran away. I didn't have time to do anything. And the redhead saw the whole thing. I grudgingly got dressed and went to the next hotel to swear. Their entrance was not visible from my room, and I therefore did not know something. Just as I approached the door and grabbed the handle, from somewhere around the corner vaulted guard. "Son, are you bored with your life? Go on, get out of here before something falls on you." I waved off the guard and yelled to explain how this redhead ruined my evening. The guard shrugs his shoulders. "Son, you are imagining things. This hotel has long been out of order. The ceiling on the top floor fell down, nailed the whole family. The walls are crumbling there. Above the 5th floor is generally impossible to get up. There is no floor anywhere." I walked away, no longer thinking about the beauty that ran away from me. I walked around the hotel. Indeed, in some places, there were gaping holes in the walls. The roof was tilted to the side. How could it be? Where had the girl come from? But most frustrating of all, how could I have not noticed that the inn was not residential? It was perfectly normal from my perspective. I didn't stay there long. I packed up that evening and left in the morning. Story 6. One day I was leaving the hotel and noticed a homeless man sleeping peacefully on the front lawn. I went back to the front desk and told the staff to ask him to leave. The next day I came back and saw the same homeless man again, sleeping on the lawn. I flew into the hotel and started asking why the employees didn't do as I said. Another manager and I went out to chase the homeless man away, but what we saw shocked us. This man was decently dressed and he wasn't asleep. He was dead. It turned out that the businessman, who was staying in a room on the 12th floor, had fallen out the window. He had been lying on the lawn in front of the hotel all night and half the day because no one saw him fall.